The warning. Xenthar rushed through the grand hallway of the Galactic Council chambers, his four legs moving faster than protocol allowed. The guards at the massive bronze doors stepped aside, recognizing the diplomatic insignia on his ceremonial robe. Inside the circular chamber, 300 representatives from across the galaxy were engaged in a heated debate about trade route regulations. The council speaker, a tall Moravian with translucent skin, noticed the interruption and raised a slender hand. The council recognizes the representative from Vega Prime. This appears urgent. Xenthar approached the central podium. His breathing labored. Distinguished representatives, I bring disturbing news that cannot wait. Our long-range monitoring stations have detected unprecedented military mobilization in human space. A murmur spread through the chamber. The humans were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Their rapid technological advancement had been impressive, but they maintained a peaceful presence. The evidence suggests they are preparing for large-scale conflict. Xenthar continued, activating a holographic display. Human shipyards have tripled production. Their colony worlds are establishing defensive perimeters. Military vessels are gathering at strategic points throughout their territory. The Arctuvian representative, known for their caution, spoke up. Perhaps this is simply a defensive response to some perceived threat. I thought the same, replied Xenthar, until we intercepted communications mentioning something called Operation Valkyrie. Our translators indicate this refers to an ancient human deity that selected warriors for battle. Jack Reynolds, the human ambassador, rose from his seat. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and the casual confidence typical of his species. Distinguished colleagues, I assure you these are routine exercises. Earth takes its defense responsibility seriously, nothing more. The council speaker fixed her gaze on Reynolds. Then you would not object to a formal inquiry? Of course not, Reynolds answered smoothly. Though I must note that sovereign military matters are protected under Article 7 of our membership agreement. Xenthar pressed a button on his device, and a new image appeared. This was captured 3 days ago near the Orion Arm. The hologram showed a massive vessel under construction, unlike any human design previously registered with the Council. Weapons ports lined its hull. A new defense platform, Reynolds explained. The outer colonies have reported pirate activity. Pirates do not require this level of response, said the Droll representative, her feathers rising in alarm. This vessel could destroy a small moon. Xenthar nodded gravely. We have also detected unusual energy signatures consistent with weapons testing in the Sol system. Weapons that violate 3 separate council prohibitions. Reynolds maintained his composure, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of his station. I will need to consult with my government before commenting further. There is more, Xenthar said quietly. Our deep space array captured this transmission 2 days ago. He activated an audio file. A human voice, clear and commanding, filled the chamber. All fleet elements. This is command. Operation Valkyrie is now at Stage 3. Prepare for full deployment. The window closes in 48 standard days. We march to war. Silence fell over the council. 300 representatives turned toward Ambassador Reynolds, who stood frozen, his diplomatic mask finally cracking. The council speaker's voice was barely above a whisper. Ambassador Reynolds, your government has some explaining to do. I need to contact Earth immediately, Reynolds said, his face pale. The council is now in emergency session, announced the speaker. All normal business is suspended. Ambassador Reynolds, we expect answers within 1 rotation cycle. As Reynolds hurried from the chamber, Xenthar noticed something unusual in the human's expression. Not guilt or shame at being discovered. It was fear. The Galactic Council wasted no time forming a special committee to investigate human military activities. They appointed Mreldor, a skeptical Valerian diplomat known for his thoroughness, to lead the inquiry. His first act was to request a formal meeting with the human delegation at their embassy on the Council homeworld. Lisa Winters sat across from Mreldor, in the embassy's conference room. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue diplomatic uniform bore Earth's insignia, a simplified globe surrounded by olive branches. "Ambassador Winters, we require access to your military installation records," Mreldor stated, his purple skin rippling with the formal patterns of official business. "That would violate our sovereignty rights under Section 12 of the Membership Charter." Winters replied coolly, "I can assure you all human military activity remains within agreed parameters." Mreldor's inner eyelids blinked in frustration. "Then perhaps you can explain why human colonies have doubled their defensive capabilities in the past month." "Standard security upgrades. Nothing more." This pattern continued for days. Every question met with carefully worded non-answers. The committee made no progress while human activity increased throughout their territory. On the fifth day, everything changed. The junior officer from Earth's Space Force contacted the committee secretly, requesting a private meeting. Alan Murphy met with Exenthar in a quiet corner of the council archives. Murphy was young, nervous, his uniform missing its rank insignia. "What I'm about to share will end my career," Murphy said, glancing around. "But the council needs to understand what's happening." He handed over a data crystal. "This contains classified historical records about Earth, the unedited version." That night, the committee gathered in a secure room to review the files. What they saw left them stunned. "These humans have spent their entire history at war with themselves," whispered a Centaurian representative. "Thousands of conflicts, billions dead." The files showed centuries of human warfare, evolving from primitive weapons to nuclear arsenals. Their brief periods of peace were merely preparations for the next conflict. Most shocking was how this history had been sanitized in the official records provided to the Council when Earth joined. "They're not just warriors," Mreldor observed. "They've built their entire civilization around warfare. Their greatest technological advances came during conflicts." The next day, the committee discovered that Earth had been developing technologies thought impossible. A Proximan scientist on the committee identified designs for weapons that could disrupt the fabric of space itself. "These specifications violate Prohibition Treaty 447, she said. "No species has attempted such weapons since the Collapse Wars." When confronted, Ambassador Winters remained unmoved. "We develop technologies for many purposes. Assumptions about their use are speculative." As pressure mounted, Earth's colony worlds began activating defensive shields previously hidden from Council scans. Merchant vessels suddenly revealed military capabilities as armor plating and weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments. Mreldor called an emergency session with the full Council. "Distinguished representatives, our investigation has produced disturbing conclusions. The humans have deliberately concealed their military nature and capabilities. They possess technology far beyond what they have disclosed. And now, they appear to be preparing for a major conflict." The council chamber erupted in alarmed discussions. The speaker called for order. "What are your recommendations?" she asked Mreldor. "We must demand immediate cessation of military activities and full disclosure of their intentions," he replied. "If they refuse, we should consider them a threat to galactic peace." The motion passed with near unanimity. Only Earth's few allies abstained. No one noticed the grim satisfaction on Ambassador Winters' face as she left the chamber. The humans had expected this reaction. It was already accounted for in their plans. The council chambers buzzed with tension as representatives from 100 worlds gathered for an emergency session. At the center of the room stood a holographic projection of the official cease and desist order. The document demanded an immediate halt to all human military activities and threatened severe sanctions if Earth failed to comply within 5 standard days. Ambassador Winters had been recalled to Earth, replaced by Admiral Donna Phillips. Phillips stood now before the council, her military uniform stark against the colorful diplomatic attire around her. Her gray hair was cut short, and the medals on her chest spoke of a lifetime of service. "The Galactic Council has presented its demands," the speaker announced. "We await Earth's response." Admiral Phillips stepped forward, her posture rigid. "Earth acknowledges receipt of your order," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "We respectfully decline to comply." Gasps echoed through the chamber. No species had ever directly refused a council directive. "This is unprecedented," the speaker said. "You realize the consequences of your position." "We do," Phillips replied. "Earth and her colonies will continue our military preparations. We cannot and will not stop." The Arctuvian representative rose. "You leave us no choice but to implement sanctions immediately. Your trading rights will be suspended. Your ships will be denied access to Council space." Phillips nodded, as if she had expected this. "Do what you must. We will do the same." Within days, reports flooded in from across human space. Factory worlds converted to military production. Civilian ships were retrofitted with armor and weapons. Earth's long-dormant shipyards in the asteroid belt roared to life, constructing vessels of war. The Council's intelligence services scrambled to make sense of it all. Even Earth's closest allies seemed surprised by the scale and speed of the mobilization. "It's as if they planned for this moment for decades," Tenthar told the Emergency Committee. "Their entire economy has shifted to war footing in less than a week." Mreldor studied the latest reports. Their border colonies have established a defensive line. Any attempt to enforce sanctions would require military action. "Are they truly planning to fight the entire council?" a Proximan delegate asked. The question hung in the air, unanswered. On the 8th day after the ultimatum, a small delegation of Earth's alien allies requested a private audience with the council leadership. The Arkelian ambassador, whose species had traded with humans since first contact, seemed deeply troubled. "We have known the humans for many cycles," she said. "They are aggressive, yes, but not irrational. Something else drives them." The council debated sending a military fleet to blockade human space. As the vote commenced, alarms blared throughout the complex. The chief of security rushed into the chamber. "Urgent news," he announced. "Multiple unknown vessels have appeared at the edge of the Orion Arm. They match no known design in our database." The main screen activated, showing grainy images of massive ships, their hulls black against the stars. Each vessel dwarfed the largest council dreadnought. "Are they human?" the speaker asked. "We believe so," the security chief replied. "But they use technology we've never seen before. Our sensors can barely track them." Phillips, who had remained on the council station despite the tension, was summoned back to the chamber. She studied the images with a grim expression. "Those are our Omega-class warships," she confirmed. "Previously classified. They'd been deployed as a precautionary measure." "Precautionary?" Mreldor's voice rose in anger. "You position planet killers at our borders and call it precautionary." Phillips faced the council, her expression hardening. "We've tried to explain through diplomatic channels. You refuse to listen. Now perhaps you'll pay attention." She activated a small device, and a new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. "This is what we're preparing for," she said quietly. "This is why we march to war." The image showed something moving through deep space toward the galaxy, something vast and terrible. The hologram displayed in the council chamber showed only a shadowy mass against the void of space, but even this vague image sent ripples of unease through the gathered representatives. Admiral Phillips stood silently as the council members studied the projection. "What exactly are we looking at?" the speaker finally asked. "The enemy," Phillips replied simply. "An extragalactic invasion force approaching from the Andromeda direction." Mreldor scoffed. "Convenient. A mysterious threat only humans can detect, justifying your military buildup." The council remained skeptical, unwilling to accept human claims without proof. They dismissed Phillips and debated for hours, ultimately deciding to send their own scientific expedition to verify the alleged threat. Meanwhile, a council intelligence agent named Katie White was operating deep in human space. White had been born on Earth, but had lived among aliens for decades, making her perfect for undercover work. Her current assignment, infiltrate a human military installation, and discover their true intentions. White accessed the high-security complex using forged credentials. Working carefully through the night shift, she downloaded classified files from the military network. What she found stopped her cold, detailed scans and analysis of the approaching threat, first detected by human deep space erased 15 years earlier. The invaders weren't just ships, they were a swarm of biomechanical entities that consumed all matter in their path. Humans called them the Harvesters. They'd move between galaxies, stripping each one before moving to the next, and they would reach the Milky Way within months. White transmitted her findings to Council headquarters before security forces discovered her presence. She barely escaped with her life. Back at the Council, heated debate continued. The scientific expedition had returned with inconclusive results. They had detected unusual energy readings, but nothing definitive. The Council remained divided. Then Ben Howard arrived, a civilian scientist from Earth's Deep Space Research Division. Howard had defied his government to bring evidence directly to the Council. He was immediately granted the floor. "I've spent 10 years studying the Harvesters," Howard explained, activating a display. "This isn't speculation or theory anymore." His evidence was overwhelming. High-definition scans showing thousands of massive entities, mathematical models predicting their arrival patterns, even fragmentary communications intercepted from the swarm. "We've been tracking them since they consumed a dwarf galaxy on the far side of Andromeda," Howard said. "Earth began preparing immediately, but we kept it secret to prevent panic." The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "Why not inform the Council when you joined?" the speaker asked. "Would you have believed us?" Howard replied. "A newcomer species claiming an unprecedented threat. You would have dismissed it as human paranoia." Admiral Phillips returned to the chamber, accompanied by Jack Reynolds, who had been Earth's first ambassador to the Council. When humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, Reynolds explained, "Our first priority wasn't exploration or trade. It was to confirm what our long-range telescopes had detected, the Harvester's existence." Phillips stepped forward. "Operation Valkyrie isn't an invasion plan. It's our response to the Harvesters. Every ship we've built, every weapon we've developed, has been designed specifically to combat this threat." "Why call it marching to war?" asked Xanthar. "Because that's what we're doing," Phillips answered. "We're marching to meet the enemy before they reach populated systems. Our projections show they'll arrive at the galaxy's edge in 38 days. The Arctuvian representative spoke up. "Even if this is true, why should the Council join your fight? Perhaps these Harvesters will bypass our worlds." Howard shook his head sadly. "They don't bypass anything. They consume everything in their path. We've watched them devour entire star systems." Admiral Phillips faced the Council directly. "Earth stands ready to fight, with or without you. But know this, if we fall, you're next. Every world in this galaxy will face the same fate." The Council had a choice to make: join the humans in their desperate defense, or face extinction alone. The emergency council session stretched into its third day. Representatives from 200 worlds argued bitterly over the human evidence. Some demanded immediate military alliance, while others insisted the threat was exaggerated or fabricated. "This could be an elaborate human deception," warned the Droll representative. Her feathers flared in agitation. "Their species has a documented history of using external threats to unite rivals." "The evidence is compelling," countered the Arkelian ambassador. "Dr. Howard's data matches anomalies our own scientists detected years ago, but couldn't explain." As the debate raged, old rivalries resurfaced. The Centaurian collective refused to join any alliance that included their ancient enemies, the Proximan Federation. The Valerian Directorate demanded control of any joint military operation, a request immediately rejected by a dozen other powers. In the midst of this chaos, an elderly council representative named Greg Foster slowly made his way to the speaking platform. Foster had served on the council for over 40 years, one of the few humans to dedicate his life to galactic politics rather than Earth's military or scientific endeavors. Distinguished colleagues, Foster began, his voice quiet but steady. I have lived among you for most of my life. I have learned your customs, shared your meals, celebrated your festivals. I consider many of you friends. The chamber quieted as he spoke. Earth did not wish to bring this burden to your doorstep. We hope to face this threat alone and spare you the terror we have lived with since first detecting the harvesters. But the enemy is too powerful. Foster activated a display showing the combined military strength of the Council worlds alongside Earth's forces. Separately, we will fall. Together, we have a chance. Not a good one, but a chance nonetheless. Over the next hours, Foster met with faction leaders individually. He listened to concerns, offered compromises, and slowly built consensus. His advanced age seemed to work in his favor. Other species respected his willingness to spend his final years fighting for the galaxy's survival. By the fourth day, a historic defense pact took shape. 173 worlds agreed to join Earth in a united front against the harvesters. The remaining powers didn't oppose the alliance, but would wait and see before committing their forces. The newly formed Galactic Defense Command established headquarters on a neutral space station. Human and alien military leaders gathered to integrate their forces, though tensions remained high. Your vessels lack proper shielding, a Valerian admiral complained. They'll be destroyed in seconds. Our ships are designed for speed and offensive capability, responded the human commander. Your heavy cruisers are impressive, but too slow to evade harvester energy weapons. Despite these challenges, combined fleet exercises began immediately. Human tactical doctrines shocked their allies. Earth forces practiced kamikaze runs, used civilian vessels as bait, and employed nuclear weapons in ways the Council had long forbidden. Your methods violate every convention of civilized warfare, protested a Centaurian captain. The harvesters don't care about conventions, replied Admiral Phillips. Neither can we. As the Alliance forces prepared, human warships deployed to protect vulnerable Council worlds. The massive Omega-class vessels took positions at strategic points throughout the galaxy, their presence both reassuring and unsettling to local populations. On the 23rd day after the Alliance formed, a scout ship returned from the galaxy's edge with news. Preliminary harvester forces had arrived. Scout vessels probing the galaxy's defenses. The Alliance engaged these first enemy ships in a series of brief, violent skirmishes. The results were sobering. Even the advanced scouts possessed technology far beyond most Council weapons. Only the specialized human armaments seemed effective. Foster gathered the Council one final time before full mobilization. The first shots have been fired, he told them gravely. The real war begins now. Whatever happens next, know that humanity is proud to stand with you. Across the galaxy, civilians of all species watched the skies with new understanding as warships jumped to light speed. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The battle began without warning. A spatial rift opened at the edge of the Cygnus arm, tearing a hole in normal space nearly a light-year wide. Through this wound in reality emerged the Harvester Armada, not hundreds of ships as expected, but thousands. Their vessels resembled massive skeletal structures, organic and mechanical components fused together in ways that defied conventional engineering. The Alliance's forward defense fleet engaged immediately. Valerian dreadnoughts fired their main cannons, scoring direct hits on the leading harvester vessels. For a moment, hope surged through the command centers, then faded as the enemy ships absorbed the energy attacks and continued forward, undamaged. Conventional weapons have minimal effect, reported the Arkelian admiral. Switching to gravitational disruptors, the human forces moved in closer, their smaller ships weaving between the massive Council vessels. They launched specialized warheads developed specifically for this enemy, quantum-locked projectiles designed to bypass the harvester's energy absorption capabilities. These weapons proved more effective, destroying several enemy vessels. But for each harvester ship destroyed, 5 more emerged from the rift. The Alliance's front line began to buckle under the pressure. Defensive Formation Alpha is collapsing, called out a tactical officer in the main command center. Sectors 7 through 12 reporting critical damage. Admiral Phillips watched the battle displays grimly. Order all civilian ships to evacuate the Cygnus colonies immediately. Redirect all available forces to cover their retreat. The Alliance had prepared evacuation plans for border worlds, but no one had expected to implement them so quickly. Massive transport ships descended to planet surfaces, loading terrified civilians while defense forces fought desperately to buy time. On the front lines, Captain Eric Jordan commanded the human warship Defiance. His vessel had taken heavy damage, shields failing, and hull integrity compromised on multiple decks. Engineering reports drive core destabilizing, his first officer reported. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Jordan studied the tactical display. His ship was positioned near one of the main Harvester command vessels, a massive structure twice the size of any Alliance ship. The enemy vessel pulsed with strange energy as it coordinated the attack. Negative on withdrawal, Jordan decided. Get me a direct line to Science Officer Martinez. Olivia Martinez had been studying sensor data from the battle in her lab aboard the Defiance. When Jordan's call came through, she was examining energy patterns from destroyed Harvester ships. "Captain, I found something," she said without preamble. The Harvester's communication network operates on a quantum entanglement principle, but there's a pattern to their signal coordination. "Can we disrupt it?" Jordan asked. "Better," Martins replied. "If we can get close enough to one of their command ships, I believe we can introduce a cascading failure into their entire network." Jordan looked at his ship's status. The Defiance wouldn't survive much longer in combat. "We'll need to get very close." Ramming distance. The bridge fell silent as the implication became clear. "I need volunteers only," Jordan said to his crew. "Launch all escape pods for the rest." No one moved toward the escape pods. The Defiance powered up its remaining engines and accelerated toward the massive Harvester command vessel. Alliance ships received the plan and moved to create a corridor, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. "Harvester vessels are adjusting to intercept," Tactical reported. "They've identified us as a threat." "Deploy the package exactly as Martinez specified," Jordan ordered. As the Defiance closed the final distance, Martinez activated her device, a modified quantum transmitter broadcasting a specifically coded signal into the Harvester network. The enemy command ship loomed enormous in the viewports. "Impact in 5 seconds, the first officer announced calmly. The Defiance slammed into the Harvester vessel at near relativistic speed. The human ship disintegrated instantly, but its sacrifice allowed Martinez's signal to penetrate deep into the enemy network. Throughout the battlefield, Harvester ships suddenly lost coordination. Some fired on their own allies. Others shut down completely, drifting powerless. "All Alliance vessels, press the advantage." Admiral Phillips ordered. "The enemy is vulnerable." The tide of battle turned. For the first time since the war began, the Harvesters were in retreat. Jordan's gambit had worked, at least for now. 6 months after the Battle of Cygnus Arm, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the rebuilt council chambers. The room sparkled with new construction, but subtle signs of the recent conflict remained. A cracked pillar here, a scorched wall panel there. These imperfections had been deliberately preserved as reminders of how close they had come to extinction. Admiral Steve Patterson stood at the central podium, his dress uniform freshly pressed for the occasion. Unlike his predecessor, Admiral Phillips, who had perished during the counteroffensive against the Harvester retreat, Patterson had a diplomat's touch that matched his military experience. "The Alliance forces have confirmed no Harvester activity within sensor range of our galaxy," Patterson reported. "The quantum disruption strategy pioneered by Captain Jordan and Officer Martinez appears to have severed the enemy's ability to coordinate large-scale operations." The speaker, a new Moravian who had replaced her predecessor after the destruction of their homeworld, nodded solemnly. "The Council formally acknowledges humanity's essential role in our survival. Without Earth's preparation and sacrifice, we would have fallen. The chamber erupted in applause, representatives of 100 species rising to their feet. Even those who had most distrusted humans joined in the ovation. When the applause faded, the speaker continued. The Council has voted unanimously to elevate humanity to senior council status, with all rights and privileges thereof. Additionally, we formally resigned all censures and apologize for our initial suspicion of human motives. Patterson bowed slightly. Earth accepts your apology and your friendship. We only regret that our warnings couldn't be delivered more convincingly without the mistrust that delayed our cooperative defense. The meeting continued with practical matters. The Alliance military framework, hastily assembled during the crisis, was established as a permanent institution. Human tactical doctrines that had proven so effective against the Harvesters were incorporated into standard training for all Council forces. We must acknowledge that humanity's history of warfare, which once disturbed us, proved to be our salvation, said Mreldor, who had become one of Earth's strongest supporters. Their understanding of combat strategies exceeded anything in our combined experience. After the formal proceedings, a smaller group gathered in a private chamber. Patterson met with the Council's inner circle to discuss the future. The galaxy has changed forever, Greg Foster observed. The elderly diplomat looked frailer than ever, but his eyes remained sharp. We cannot return to the peaceful isolation of before. No, agreed Patterson. And there's something we haven't shared widely yet. He activated a holographic display showing deep space sensor readings. Long-range scans from Earth's dark matter observatory have detected unusual activity beyond the galactic rim. The display showed energy signatures moving toward the Milky Way from multiple directions. The Harvesters? Asked the speaker, tension evident in her voice. We don't think so, Patterson replied. The patterns are different, but they're definitely approaching, and in greater numbers than the first wave. The Council members exchanged worried glances. How long do we have? Foster asked. 2 years, maybe 3, Patterson said. We're already adapting our shipyards to construct next-generation defense vessels. The plans are included in the Alliance protocols you just ratified. The speaker studied Patterson's face. You knew this was coming. We suspected, he admitted. The universe is more dangerous than any of us realized. But this time, we faced the threat together, from the beginning. As the meeting concluded, Patterson walked to a viewport overlooking the Council world. Ships from 100 species moved through the traffic lanes above the gleaming city. Among them were the distinctive shapes of human vessels, no longer separated from the community they had fought to protect. On the far horizon, construction crews worked on massive new defense platforms, designed with combined human and alien technology, built to protect all species equally. The war wasn't over, perhaps it never would be. But humanity had found its place in the galaxy at last, not as conquerors or merchants, but as defenders against the darkness beyond the stars. The long march continued, but no species would face it alone again.